So thanks again for Richard and Bio for inviting me to talk. Thank you for joining me for this session. And it's me helping you to establish your high payoff activities for growth that must control your diary, and in my opinion, dominate your diary. So I hope you've got coffee and maybe some lunch with you already, but importantly, you've got a pen with you, because over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take some time to share with you my thoughts that will help you to identify those high payoff activities, those things that you have to do in your business without distraction for the development of your business, and like I say, will dominate your diary. And I hope you're going to find this more practical, with some practical tips for you to take away, rather than just sort of high level theory, etc. So please, if you do have any questions, drop them into the chat, but I will try and capture them at the end or offline afterwards. If I may, just to start with, um, just take a few moments to introduce myself. Back in the last century, I was Barclays area manager for the startup team. I then went to a new leisure startup that spun out of South Oxford District Council called Soul Leisure. I'm sure many of you know them, based on Milton Park and the Kassam site. And then 2000, I set up my own businesses, ranging from a bookkeeping company, a training business, a marketing company, and an indoor soft play centre. And people say to me, crikey, Mike, that's quite a bizarre mix you have there. But I think my strength was seeing strategies, seeing models, seeing systems that could work. And I like now to share that with my clients as the entrepreneur's mentor in an advisory role. So ultimately, what stops the majority of us from taking action and growing? And the research tells us that it's, yes, around attitude and motivation. And we heard a great session from Celine yesterday that I was hosting about attitude and positive mindset. Then about perhaps the system or the plan to make it all happen. But ultimately, the one that we all strive for is more time. And unfortunately, we can't give you more time, but perhaps we can better use our time effectively. So I'm going to give you 3 ways initially, and it's not the be-all and end-all way to find what your high payoff activities are, but I hope these 3 ways are going to help fuel your thoughts, and in a thought-provoking way, help you identify, like I say, those things you have to do without distraction in your business. The first one is a 1-page business plan. This one's blank at the moment, but literally, what can you do on 1 page? Now, at the top of the piece of paper, I'd encourage you to write down what your mission, vision, goal, and objective is. That might be for a project, it may be for a next 90-day sprint, or it may be for your longer-term vision of what you're looking to achieve. Then on the rest of the top half of the paper, write down all the targets that you need to do to achieve that mission and vision, so that ultimately, if you achieve those targets, you would achieve your mission, vision, goal, and objective. So, for example, if you wanted to double the size of your business, what sort of thing would you have? Would it be recruiting a certain number of customers? Would it be recruiting a team? Would it be bigger offices? Would it be systems and processes? Whatever that may be, what do your targets look like? So ultimately, if you achieve those targets, you will achieve your mission, vision, goal, and objective. The second half and the bottom half of the paper is then all about your high payoff activities. And how I encourage you to think about this is take one of the targets that you've written down, and again, like a pillar, think about, okay, well, what are all the high payoff activities I need to deliver to get those targets? So, for example, doubling the size of the business, we need to recruit a certain number of customers, whatever that number may be. What are the high payoff activities I need to do without distraction to make sure I get those customers? It may be all your different traction strategies that you need to pull people towards you and put them into your pipeline. And likewise, if it's your staff, your offices, etc., what are the high payoff activities you should be able to do? And again, what you should then be able to do with your 1-page plan is, in effect, fold that piece of paper in half and then focus on the half that says all your activities. And if you, in effect, focus on and you've planned the right activities, you will get your targets and you will get your mission, vision, and objective in the majority of cases. So that's one way you can identify your high payoff activities. The second way is to look at the 7 systemized steps for growing your business revenue. And this, you may have seen before, it builds on the marginal gains philosophy that has been around for years, but was really brought to life, in my opinion, publicly by Sir David Brailsford of British Cycling, when he said, okay, with British Cycling, we'll break down all the elements of cycling. What do they ride in terms of the elements of the bike? What do they eat? How do they train? What do they wear? We'll improve all those different elements and we'll pull it back together. And when they pulled the cumulative effect back together, it's history. They then, Olympic champions, world champions, then went on to Sky, etc., Tour de France. So what are the 7 steps for driving your business revenue? Well, first of all, there's how can you improve the number of leads in your business? And looking at these individual 7 steps may drive your high path activities, the things that you need to do. So for example, in your number of leads, what's your strategy? Do you need to reflect on your strategy? Do you need to think about who your ideal client profile is? Do you need to review your tactics? And are you using the right tools online and offline to pull towards you your ideal prospects? Are you being proactive as much as you need to be? And are you creating those lead flow generating systems that actually pull more people into your funnel and in effect generate more business for you? The second area is your conversion rate. Do you know your conversion rate now as a starting point, but how can you improve that? So for example, are you clear on your USP, your differentiator, your value proposition, for example? Are you clear enabling you to be able to, with clarity, communicate that to your prospect? And is it in consideration of everything that's important to them as the buyer, not what's just important to you? And how clear to your buyer is your differentiator? And is it really relevant? When you're in your sales conversation, do you know all the influencers that are going to be making the decision that you're proposing to them? You know, is it not just the person you're speaking to? Are there other influencers that you need to get involved in the conversation? And are you honestly reflecting on your sales performance so that you can continually improve your conversion rate? And what about removing the risk? Could you offer a guarantee in some way that removes the risk of that person making that purchase with you? Then what about the number of sales? Can we improve the number of sales at that first point of purchase whilst our buyer is in buy-in mode? So, for example, are they aware of everything you have to offer? Are you presenting that on the table for them? Do you have a credibility pack that in effect tells them what you offer, how it addresses their pain and problem, and why your solution is the thing that they should be engaging with? And are you packaging your product? So, for example, I used to work with a number of bookkeepers who just went in and just sold bookkeeping. They forgot to sell payroll, credit control, management accounts, etc. And then by building packages in, they were making more sales at that first point of sale. Can you increase the sale value for your customer purchases? So yes, we could put our prices up. Some will say to me at the moment, it's not probably the right time, but actually you can put your prices up. Not all your customers may follow you, but that's okay. Because actually, if you put your prices up, some will leave, but because you put your price up, you will still retain that turnover value that you have now as a minimum. And what do you gain? You gain more time, and more time to work on the business, or more time to recruit customers that are prepared to pay that price, or more of your ideal customers. What's your upsell? You know, McDonald's do it the best, don't they, in terms of, would you like fries with that? But what's your upsell? And are you in the need to reposition your business? So for example, I've got my water here. I got it from the tap, really cheap for me. But if I put that in a nice little plastic bottle, I put a label on it that's spelled naive backwards, I could probably sell that for a good £1 or so. So again, what do you need to do to reposition your business and think about how you can create more sales value? I'm sure we've all been doing the next step, which is thinking about our margin right now and reviewing our costs. But just as well as just reviewing our direct costs, what about your resourcing costs? What about what's it costing you to resource a job right now to deliver that job with the operational excellence that you want to deliver? Can you shave some cost out of that in some way? Can you encourage your customers to buy more often from you? So are you reminding them on a regular basis what it is that you do? That may be by a newsletter, that may be by a regular review meeting that you have with them. Are you keeping yourself front of mind with your customers about everything that you have to offer? And the 7th step is about the lifetime value. Are you be able to retain your customers for longer? So, keep it personal. They're not just a number on your database. Are you communicating with them? Are you collecting feedback from your customers that are always just feeding back into your value proposition? And ultimately, are you staying alert to your customers so that you're afresh in terms of what their latest demands, wants, and expectations of you are as a customer? So in terms of, we go back to the marginal gains, just to give you some evidence in terms of why I think you should focus on these 7 steps, is you can see, you can do this with your own numbers, obviously, but put your now numbers in there. Think about a percentage increase. It doesn't have to be 10%, it might be 5%. And you'll see that the cumulative effect is much greater than just the percentage you're saying you're going to increase each one. These numbers here, you can see 10% increase gives us a near double effect. The third area I'm going to give you in a way to think about your high payoff actions, if one of those 7 areas for growing your revenue hasn't fueled some thoughts for you, is effective goal planning. And anybody that knows me knows that I love my goal planning. I love to structure my goals, and I do believe it is fed into the way that I achieve my goals. Now, what I think, well, one of the things that frustrates me, I think, is that I see so many business owners with fantastic goals and visions and plans, but not so many actually achieving what it is that they set out to achieve. So I think one of the reasons for this is that we tend to think about, okay, what's the goal? Where are we today? Where do we want to be in X months or time, or whatever the period may be, the planned achievement date? And then we jump straight into the actions. And there's no surprises that we hit a brick wall, and then because we hit a brick wall, we can't get around it. I do love the ant analogy. If you heard Celine share the ant analogy yesterday, but if we can't get through that brick wall, we bail out, we give up. Okay, so I did some research back in probably about 2008 time with a guy called John O'Harris that some of you will know, when we looked at basically a number of steps that were missing in most people's goal planning, and when they brought these steps into their goal planning, how much more effective the achievement of their goals were. And I'll take you through these very quickly, but ultimately it's these step 5 and 6 that I'll dwell on for your high payoff activities. The first 2 is around your benefits and losses. What motivates you to achieve your goals? Is it the benefit of achieving the goal or the loss of not? What's the gain and pain? Now, it's ultimately for all of us going to be a bit of both, probably 75% of one and 25% of the other. But I encourage you to write all the gain and pain down. So, and if you write them down, keep them there, keep it visual. So how is it going to feel to achieve your goal, not achieve your goal? What's the knock-on effect of achieving the goal or not achieving the goal, for example? When we're talking about high payoff activities, if I talk to anybody about goal planning, they can give me a huge list of the things that's going to stop them from achieving their goal, all those obstacles, all those things that are going to get in the way. So I encourage you to write those down on the left-hand side of a piece of paper. And on the right-hand side, write down all the solutions that you can think of to counteract those obstacles. And those, for me, start to fuel your high payoff activities, because if they're the solutions, I can then build those into my actions. And again, it might sound a little bit blasé, if you like, but actually, if you've got your actions like an action checklist, and you're going through your checklist, and obviously that action list includes all your solutions, what's less likely to appear? The obstacles are less likely to appear, and you're less likely to bail out, and you're more likely to strive towards achieving your goal. And just aside, an important one that I encourage you to think about with your goal planning is to share your goal. Who else needs to know your goal? Is it your partner? Is it someone in your family? Is it a friend? Is it someone in the business? Someone you keep yourself accountable to? There's loads of evidence out there that if you keep yourself accountable to others, you're more likely to achieve. And those that know me know that I struggled to get in the gym for a long time. When I kept myself accountable to somebody else, I got myself there because I didn't want to let them down, as an example. So now we know a little bit about the things that we can help us form our high payoff activities. And we've sort of thought, okay, well, now I've got this list of high payoff activities I need to focus on. Many of us get distracted away from those things. So how are we going to plan those to maximize our valuable time? Now, I'm sure you've all seen the time management matrix before, whereby we're ideally looking to work in that grey box of that important, non-urgent stuff, things like our business strategy, our marketing strategy, or that proactivity element that we should be working on. But what tends to happen is we start in the middle with all the best intentions of the day to work up into that grey box. And what happens is we get pulled up into that top left box, the urgent and the important box, or those things that are perceived to be urgent and important. So the phone goes, the email goes, someone interrupts us, distracts us who's in our team. And we in effect go into firefighting mode, and we deal with those issues. And to recover, we go back into the bottom right box, which is the non-important, the non-urgent. So we start surfing the net, we have a chat with someone, we make ourselves a coffee. Then what we do, we reset, we get back into the middle, and what do? We get distracted again, without planning our time effectively. That basically says, without distractions, I'm going to work in that grey box today. So ultimately, it's about how can we improve the percentage of time we're working on our priorities and our goals, and working, as I'm sure you've heard the phrase before, working on the business rather than in the business. So the two ways that I can encourage you to think about very simply for today's talk in terms of the limited time we have is your to-do list and your diary. Now, first of all, with our to-do list. With the to-do list, are you prioritizing your to-do list effectively? When I say that, when I see a lot of people's to-do lists, they tend to put the really easy things or the real simple things at the top, and the difficult things or the things they don't like doing, they're right at the bottom. And they tend to be actually the most important things to do. Now, I do get it. Some of us like to do one thing and get it ticked off, and that starts a momentum for the day, etc. But don't sort of hide your high power activities because they're just not easy to do or they're not enjoyable to do if you're going to do them yourself. The other option is obviously to outsource that or to delegate that to another person. When you've then thought about your prioritization, continually, for me, write out your to-do list. If you're writing out your to-do list each time, for those things you haven't crossed off, you're reminding yourself of the thing that you've still got to do, but at the same time, subconsciously reflecting, well, why didn't I do it? What stopped me from doing it? And in effect, keeping yourself accountable for where you're going to write that down. For me, it's much more reflective rather than if you're using something like an Outlook to-do list by going, clicking on it, changing the date and putting it into another aspect. But how does your to-do list then blend into your diary? Well, what I encourage you to think about with your diary is sectioning out your diary. Importantly, break your diary out into a view so that you can see 1 to 31 days, the whole month, for example, or even more, just so that you can see where the gaps are in your business. Again, I see people trying to schedule activities on their day when there's no chance in that day that they're going to be able to do it because they're out with customers all day, for example, or they've got other activities built in. And all we then do is we get to the end of the day and we beat ourselves up because we didn't do what we wanted to do, but actually there was no chance we were going to do it. So how would we section up our diary? Well, you can see in my example here, I work at a maximum efficiency of batches of 3 hours. So then I basically have multiples of that time across my diary. Now, a 3 hour may be a mentoring session that I'm running. It may be a piece of work that I'm doing strategically for my business. And then my other multiples might be a half-hour qualifying call. It might be an hour free session, or it might be an hour and a half webinar that I'm running. And I then think about, okay, well, when am I most efficient in terms of working at my best? So am I best working in the morning or in the afternoon? Well, I want to be fresh of mind with my clients. And most of my clients have their mentoring sessions in the morning. And then I work on my business and the things that I can do with my eyes closed in the afternoon, if you like. So when are you most effective, and what does your diary look like? And some of my clients actually have loads of blank boxes across their diary. And when someone wants some of their time, some of their valuable time, they will then look at where the gaps are around the things from their to-do list that they've scheduled into their diary. So the to-do list is full of all those high payoff activities, and they basically gradually get into the diary, fill up the diary, and leave some gaps for your other activities that you need to do. Now, I'll also encourage, whether it's a half hour, an hour, so every so often have a realistic firefighting moment. So we all know that things aren't necessarily going to go to plan in the perfect plan. So factoring in some time where we can just bail out and have a firefighting moment, and it's okay to do that without beating ourselves up. And I also encourage you to sign off every single day. Sign off every single day and say, okay, did I achieve the things I wanted to achieve today? And if I didn't, why not? What got in the way? And one of the things that we can think about here is a distractions log. So again, my famous one piece of paper, a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, a list of who. On the right-hand side, a list of why. The who might be someone in the family. It may be someone in the business. It may be someone in your supply chain, a customer, for example. We all know those people that probably distract us most of the time. But this gives us the evidence in terms of who's doing it and how often they're doing it. And that enables us to then manage that person to say, okay, you shouldn't be distracting me or interrupting me this way or that often. Perhaps it could be delegated to somebody else, or again, you just manage that person's expectations about how often or when they could distract you. On the right-hand side, we'll give you a number of factors about why you're being distracted. And that will then give you some pattern if you record this over time. And again, when you establish why you're being distracted away from your high-power activities, that's what a distraction is. A distraction is anything you're doing that's away from your high-power activities. And once you've established what those are, you can then think, okay, well, can somebody else do those things? So again, is it a delegation or an outsourcing aspect for you? Or is it that you need a system or a process in your business, so therefore that distraction, that interruption doesn't come up? So a really effective tool that I've seen many of my clients use effectively in the past. So hopefully those thoughts have been useful for you.